Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome back to the latest episode of the Gifted Hoops podcast. It's your host with the most. My name is Gifted, and I'm joined here today by my guy, Dime Dropper. I gotta say, Dime, shout out to you, host of Locked On Clippers. How's it feeling, man?
It's always good to be a part of these previews that you do, Gifted, because I appreciate that you go all out. You get a content creator, a fan of each team, and there's nobody that knows their teams better than the guys that put all their work in and make the content for them all day long. So seeing like Brad and Will for the Rockets side, and then seeing myself for the Clippers, and it feels great to be a part of the content creators, and of course be a chance to be a part of your channel as well. That is, I've seen grow from the beginning and recently hit 2K. Congrats, bro! I'm very happy for you. So yeah, always down to make time for this.
I'm happy for you, though, because the last time we did the pod last year, you've grown so much since then. Again, the Locked On Clippers pod, that's a big opportunity. And you've been killing things, man. Like, I really like your content, how you've been so focused on everything LA. You've always stayed true to that nature. And today, we're going to be discussing your team. So are you excited about that? What's up with that?
I wouldn't say I'm excited. I'm more excited to talk to you than I am to talk about the Clippers. I talk about the Clippers all the time, too much for my own good, but it's always a good time. I'm always happy to do these things.
Okay, well, without further ado, let's get into it. If you guys want to hear the audio version of this podcast, that is available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at the Gifted Hoops Podcast. The video version will be live on YouTube. So let's get back into it. So I gotta say, a lot of things happened since our last conversation. We were previewing the season initially with the James Harden rumors and whatnot. We weren't sure about exactly how all those things would transpire, but to start the season, you guys make a trade and you get James Harden on the team. I gotta say, for you, you weren't too high on James Harden back then, and then he joined your team. I know that you weren't like the most thrilled about it. In the moment, how did that feel for you?
It was, can I be like completely honest?
100% honest.
One of the lowest moments I've ever had as a fan. I can't stand watching him play basketball. I literally am not going to hide it anymore. I've never been able to. But that being said, though, I've watched every playoff game of James Harden's career. I know what he's amazing at. Just because I'm not a fan of it, though, doesn't mean I don't know how great he is. First ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest offensive players you've ever seen. Pick and roll god, still capable of being an all-star caliber player. I know exactly who he is. I could tell you, I literally saw his first playoff game, Lakers Thunder 2010. I remember it. I remember all his big moments. And I don't believe that James Harden's just a playoff choker or anything like that. Like, I think that's very broad, but he definitely has choked and definitely has underperformed when it counts on several occasions. But he has also had great playoff games that he doesn't get enough credit for. My thing is, obviously, the reason why I don't care for James Harden is because I don't believe he's going to win a championship ever. Like, I really strongly stand on it and say that he is not going to win, which is why I didn't want to give up assets to get a guy who I don't think is going to win. And just because he's on my team doesn't mean I'm going to change my stance on that. It's what people don't understand about me is it's not about the Clippers for me. And it's just like it's not always about the Warriors for you. And they call you out for being objective because you love the game more than your team. I love the game more than my team. I coach the youth level. Now I'm getting too angry. So I coach the youth level. I've played basketball my whole life. I'm not some Division I or even Division III player, but I still love hooping. Like, this game is my life. I've made so many friends through this game. So I'm not going to change my takes to satisfy randoms on the internet. I go to games, I spend my money, and I watch basketball like a freak. Like, I watch every game that I can. I don't miss playoff games. I've seen James Harden, and I know what he is. And nothing he did for us changes anything about what I think about him. My point is, why are we trading for a guy when we don't even know if our best player can be healthy? Why are we giving up more assets when we don't know if our best player can be healthy? And people really tried to tell me he's going to ease the load on Kawhi. Really? How'd that work out? Knee inflammation. Didn't even play in the playoffs like that.
Tough.
Played 2 games. And we gave up all our defensive depth. Even though we made his life easier offensively, we gave up all of defensive depth in the front court, and Kawhi was basically our only small ball 5 kind of guy that we could go with. So it was a lot on Kawhi defensively. But James Harden, here's the thing about James Harden, though. That being said, I think he's been pretty professional as a Clipper. I think there's no reason why Clipper fans should dislike him. But I'm more of a basketball fan than I even am a Clipper fan. So I'm never going to like the guy unless maybe we win a series, I'll be a little nicer about it. But I don't regret anything about what I've said, about my stances, bro. We literally gave up first round picks unprotected, and Kawhi got hurt again. And now we don't even have Paul George, which I'm guessing you're going to go next or something like that. But yeah, man, I still feel very strongly about it. Even when he's cooking, I don't like watching him hoop.
That's strong. I'll give you my thoughts back on this, right? So before the season started, I thought the Clippers were an interesting team to look at because this was before the James Harden trade. So we weren't quite sure as to how the season would go. Me personally, I think James Harden can provide value still in a lot of overall different ways. But I always said, regardless, making the trade for James Harden, this team is still going to be a smaller team that is going to have problems with those matchups in the playoffs. My thing is, Harden can do great things, sure. But if your best player, Kawhi Leonard, is not healthy, you're asking more out of Paul George, who, for me at least, has been largely inconsistent when asked more of him in those spots. So to me, having to rely on James Harden and Paul George without Kawhi Leonard wouldn't amount to a championship. But to James Harden's credit, the minute he got traded, we saw the Clippers play the best basketball in the league for a very, 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 very long stretch. Kawhi Leonard was having an all-NBA caliber season until he went down. I think James Harden added enough value, but then when the playoffs started, which this is the biggest thing here to me, James Harden was the most consistent Clipper in the playoffs over a Paul George guy, a guy that we looked at to be like the second best player on the team outside of Kawhi Leonard. I think that losing him, but having Harden and still having Kawhi Leonard, you're in a spot where I'm not sure what the high points are in terms of actual title contention. Because if your best player is Kawhi, I think we've seen now you might not be able to rely on him for a longer postseason run. As good as he is, that's the question we've had now for 2 straight playoff seasons now, I think, which makes it kind of difficult to gauge how they're going to be. But I still feel like James Harden, in terms of his playmaking and getting guys in position, can still do that, but to what amount?
Well, I still think he can help teams. I just think people get it twisted with me because I understand, and I know it's ironic me saying this because I'm a Clipper fan, but like I truly think I understand how hard it is to win championships and how so many things have to go right, and the amount of and the kinds of players that you have to have on your team, top to bottom, and how your big players have to be available and perform in big moments. And that's always been the case. Like no matter what era you look at, like, and if it's not scoring, it's doing other things and whatnot. I think people get it twisted when I say teams can't win a championship and this and that, because I really think it's super hard. And there's only a couple teams per season going into a season that I even give a chance. Usually the number's less than like 4 that I'd really give a chance to win a ring. A lot of people say, well, they could if this happens. Like, no, to me, you guys are just, like, people are just way too optimistic and like they don't understand how hard it is to actually win a title. And there's a huge difference between a team like, and it's actually funny because you were talking about this on that clip. Because by the way, I watched your whole thing, your 12,000 view video. So you know how you're talking about Miami and how they don't have that extra score? They always hit a ceiling offensively.
Yep. So
to me, the Miami Heat, they're a team that hit their ceiling. That is a finals team at best. But there's a really big difference between a team like that and like teams like that and like the 2002, 2003 New Jersey Nets type, that they can get to the finals, but they really don't have a chance to win a ring because there's always going to be another team that's just better than them in the West.
You need something to put you on that other level, right?
Yeah, like they can win a couple of rounds, but my point is that winning the championship and getting the championship is still a huge hurdle to me in itself. And my uncle, who's a big Laker fan, one of the first things he told me when I was like 8 or 9 years old, he's like, the main thing I noticed when we first won in 2000, because he started watching like the early 90s, so he didn't catch the Showtime, and he had to wait a little bit, like relative to other Laker fans. And he said how hard it is to actually win a championship and how many things have to go right. And as a Clipper fan, everything always goes wrong. So I feel like I do know how hard it is because it's like feels impossible. But you know, I feel like one day when we have a real chance, I'll feel it. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't felt like we've had a real chance gifted since 2021.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I get why though, because you're looking for this team to have a year of consistency both in the regular season and the playoffs, and we've seen them have back-to-back good regular seasons. Then both of their guys go down, so the whole season is a wash. And then in the playoffs, either Kawhi and or Paul George simply were not there. And I do want to say this. I think the Paul George and Kawhi tenure was successful in the lens of regular season, right? Like they won a lot of games, sure. But in terms of winning a title, that's what they were brought there for. It was supposed to be Kawhi Leonard and Paul George creating a new lane for the Clippers in LA for them to really contend for greatness. And ultimately, they never were able to accomplish that. And with Paul George being gone out the door, I am curious about your honest thoughts about Paul George as a Clipper. Like, where did he rank for you overall? How did you feel about him? And more importantly, how do you feel about how things ended in terms of why he left?
I think Paul's one of the best Clippers of all time. Our bar is not very high. We haven't done much historically. Up until 5 years ago, I'd say we were the worst franchise in NBA history. Now I think we're like 26th. Like we're climbing up a little bit. Because there are some franchises that haven't made it to the conference finals. Paul was, to me, the catalyst of those, that stretch that got us the conference finals. Obviously, Kawhi was our best player in the majority of the run, but games 5 and 6 against Utah, man, we were counted out. And he put the team on his back and was incredible in those 2 games. Game 5, obviously, he was insane. Game 6 is now more remembered as the Terrence Mann game, but like, who's creating these shots for Terrence? It's Reggie Jackson, it's Paul George. And Paul was still great. Like, he literally played the most minutes, played 1 through 5, did a ton of trench work. Like, so to me, Paul will always have love for me because of that run, but ultimately gifted 1 good season out of 5. Like, for his standards. There was disappointment in every other one. Although 2022, he was injured for 51 games. I'm going to give him a pass for that.
Okay.
He was fine. But again, if you want to go back to health, that does matter, right? Like, availability does matter. So really, it is 1 great season. I think his overall tenure is disappointing. It is. I think I now have become an expert on Paul George and the kind of player he is and the excuses that he constantly made. And there's always something with him. There's always, something that's not being done enough by the coaching staff, or I got to play this way more. It's just, he contradicts himself over and over again. He constantly dodges responsibility, and he really does not, I wouldn't say live up to the talent, because he has had a Hall of Fame level career, but he leaves so much on the table for me, man. He's one of the most talented players that's ever walked this earth. And a lot of it's the mental. Like, a lot of people really discount the mental side of sports and the confidence side because you can't quantify that in a stat, and people rely on that too much. But if you watch Paul George play, you can see and on a regular basis, you can see he just doesn't want it bad enough. And it's very obvious from his body language. Doesn't matter what he says. He settles way too much. Like, he's not smart about the way he attacks games. Like, there's games where he needs to be more aggressive and he won't be. And there's games where he needs to just like relax and stop shooting so many jumpers and he won't take it to the rim. So much has to be with the defense, all eyes on him at the top of the key, and just a bunch of dribbling. Like, he makes life entirely too hard on himself. He doesn't get any easy baskets, doesn't get enough baskets to the rim anymore, doesn't get to the line anymore. And then defensively, when he doesn't have his shot going, his effort wanes immensely. As far as how I feel about him leaving, I think for him to walk away and not be willing to take a little bit less after all the stuff that he talked about, I want to bring the first title to LA, and I want to carve my own thing out here and stuff like that. And all the things that we did for him, we gave him we gave him a $45 to $50 million a year contract after he choked in the bubble and made and downplayed it over and over. I mean, we gave him a lot. We gave him all his friends, man. We gave him Reggie Jackson. We gave him Russell Westbrook.
Yep, sure did.
We gave him everybody. I'm a little skeptical about how he felt about getting James Harden, because he's kind of taking like subliminal shots at him on his podcast. But you know what? I'm never going to knock a man for going and getting his bag, because that was a lot of money to say no to. And you could honestly argue that he has a better chance of winning a championship over there. He probably does with that team. But you came here and you said you wanted to be a part of something, bro. We gave up the farm for you. Kawhi went out on a limb for you. And he also took a pay cut for you. I get it. He took the money. But it's just, after disappointing the way he did and then walking out like that, and then, taking these little backhanded shots at us, like, or backhanded compliments, like, oh, they're a great organization, but you know, I feel like the B team. Like, okay, I get it, we're the B team, but I don't want to hear it from you. So I hope he wins absolutely nothing. Whether he gets absolutely nothing. If whether he or not he gets his number retired one day, I mean, I think that's a conversation that we have to have when, like, the tempers simmer a bit and we are like emotional about it. But until he retires, I'm going to be on his head. I'll always have love for him, though, for 2021. And I do think, regardless of how he left, he's still one of the greatest Clippers of all time. Has no argument for being top 2 for me, though, over Chris Paul and Blake. But I got love for Paul. He's still extremely soft, though, relative to the caliber of player that he is. He's never going to win anything either, by the way. I'm not just going to single James Harden out. He's never winning anything.
Okay. Hot and ready out the gate. Here's my thoughts on this, right? Paul George has made a lot of excuses. He has. He's done this multiple times where he portrays himself to where he's meant to be this type of player, but then these things happen. Oh, I wasn't used right. The coach didn't have the right place for me. We've seen him shrink a lot in those spots. But for me, how I view it is the reason why Paul George is a Clipper is really because of Kawhi Leonard. And the reason why they traded all their assets for Paul George, again, is tied to Kawhi Leonard. It wasn't just for Paul George. It was, you get Paul George, I will sign as well. So really, all of those assets, all of those picks were for the duo of Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, which, to be fair, raised the Clippers into the conversation of winning a title, even though it never really materialized with those two. In terms of him leaving, I got to be honest with you, Dime, I'm 50-50 on it from this perspective. I think the Clippers absolutely failed in securing Paul George because, for me, understandably, you don't want to pay him max money. Teams don't. I get that. But I think it started when they offered him a contract where for 2 years he was making like less money than even OG Anunoby. And I think early on with that made him feel away. And then I felt like, okay, if you don't want to pay him that much money, then you have to explore trading him and actually getting some value back. And to me, when they didn't do that, and then they tried to go back and say, okay, we'll give you the same contract we gave Kawhi after he asked for that, and then they said no, I felt like that's probably going to make things harder. And then benching it and saying, okay, in the offseason, we'll figure out exactly what we'll do. You're leaving the door open for him to walk away, knowing that there's other teams that could offer him money. The most ironic part about this, though, is the fact that you trade for James Harden and you trade expiring contracts to the team that uses those contracts to clear cap space to sign him, which is really wild how that worked out. No one is really talking about how that happened. And I feel like for him, he wanted a no trade clause. I got to be honest. Paul George is not a no trade clause player. We've seen players. Bradley Beal is making $250 million right now with the no trade clause, and the Suns are kind of in hell as well right now. So if you're the Clippers, you don't give him that. But at the same time, for him to walk away for absolutely nothing, it feels like a big loss. It feels like they didn't properly asset manage at all.
Yeah, you can argue that for sure. I mean, I think what really hurt all this stuff was the new CBA, the second apron. That's what they really didn't want to go over because we already don't have picks. And if those picks in like the early 2030s drop to 29 and 30 because of the second apron rules, like what are we looking at future wise? You know what I mean? I think the Clippers organization has realized that we got to start looking at the future because this is kind of chalked. And I also think they were getting annoyed with all the stuff we've talked about with Paul George, and we're like, look, if he leaves, not the worst thing in the world. And who knows? There's some people that think it's going to be addition by subtraction. I don't necessarily believe that because I think they're underestimating how good Paul George still is. But you are right. I mean, to trade for Paul George and give up our whole future for him and Kawhi and then lose PG for nothing, it definitely stings, man. I can't lie about that.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, just in terms of right now, what the direction is. Because remember, right, a lot of people kept saying everyone's going to get re-signed. There's a new brilliant dome that's being built. They're going to have all of their star players there. And with Paul George gone, I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, the Clippers are basically done. They're just going to be this overall lottery team with no picks and whatnot. But I kind of feel like you lost Paul George, but now you got a lot more players who can do more things. You have more wings now. And to me, the biggest issue is this team traded for James Harden, but they were asking so much from their big three to do things. Now, I think now you have more pickups. The fact that you guys were the ones who got a great backup guard that everyone was looking for, which I heard you talk about, like having that much depth around you now to me really changes the current build, at least within these next 2 years. The James Harden thing is a question that has to be asked because I got to be honest, when he opted in, I felt like that was a setup for him to get traded mid-season. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. I don't know if he's going to try to sign long-term in LA beyond the year, but at least you guys retain the asset. Like, what to you is the long-term vision of the Clippers now that Paul George is gone?
I'm pretty sure it's just to be competitive because they know. I wonder what the front office thinks. Do they think we're not a championship team right now? Because we're not a championship team right now. I think everybody can kind of agree to that. The question is, what do Kawhi and James Harden think? Are they okay with the roster as is? Do they think this is a championship team? Are they going to make a fuss about it during the season? I mean, we'll see. I think they're going to start out the season and see how far we are. If Kawhi and James Harden are playing well enough where we're like, if we get one more piece, we might be back in the conversation. Because I think a lot of teams in the West have gotten worse this year, so it might be a little bit more open than last. If they want to make a trade and see what they can get to get maybe like a big forward or just maybe a third scorer to replace Paul George and go all in, I think they're going to have to see some evidence of Kawhi being healthy and James Harden being healthy and also performing. But in my opinion, Gifted, I think they've accepted that this team can't win a championship. They just want to be good because there's no point in being bad right now for us, right? Because if we trade Kawhi, OKC has our pick. So we can't
last us anyway.
We can't be bad right now unless we really just want to tear it down and get whatever we can. But the plan this year, I think, is be competitive. First season in the Intuit Dome, make the playoffs. But long-term, the plan is in 2027, when Kawhi's contract expires, that's when we go for free agents because we're not going to have the picks. So the best route is we're in LA. We have a new stadium. We have a great owner that cares. And anybody can come in and try to be the Clippers GOAT, try to get this franchise our first ring. You know what I mean? That's there for the table. And we're not a dysfunctional organization with Sterling anymore. Like Ballmer, you look what he's doing. He's doing great things. It's just about him learning how to build a championship organization. You know, he's still learning that side of things. Business, he's got it down. But to me, that's the long-term vision, Gifted, is that they know they can't win a championship. They just want to be competitive because they can't suck. I think also I'm a little, what do you think though, right? Like if they were to blow it up and get as much as we can, what do you think that looks like? Like, do you think teams would trade stuff for Kawhi and James Harden? How bad would our team be? What do you think? I'm
happy you asked me this because I feel like what fans have to acknowledge is this is not 2K. This is not like a game. Everyone thinks the answer every time you're not the clear favorite to win a title is blow it up to become that team. But realistically, what is Kawhi's value? Like teams don't know what they want to offer him right now. And for James Harden, he's on a 1-year deal. You might get a couple first, maybe one. Like, I don't know exactly what the concrete value is. And as you said, if you're not really getting a bunch of picks, what's the point in just making the team bad when you don't control your own future because you don't have your picks? I think what their main goal right now is to pivot into being a team that's competitive just to get to a point where you can make it to 2029 or 2030, and then you have your picks back. And I think that's not a bad plan because the alternative is to kind of be like what the Nets were before they traded for all of their new first round picks, right? Where it's like, okay, we don't have control of our team. Katie and Kyrie are gone. We're just in, cap hell. Like there's really not much else to do. I think for the Clippers, really leaning on, okay, let's get more wings, right? Chris Dunn with DJJ. Like lean back to a defensive identity in numbers, to where it's not just where, okay, it's Paul George and Kawhi and who else, but having a group back, right? That to me is the core of what they're trying to hedge this team on. And honestly, I'm not mad at it, because you have to look at it as what are their options, and their options are rather limited right now to me.
Yeah, they are. I mean, everything you said is true. I just think, me personally, I would like to see something new. I've been a fan when we were terrible, but here's the thing: I acknowledge that business-wise, it's not smart. But I can watch a 20-win team, and if they fight harder and give me more optimism, I'll enjoy it more than this. I mean, there's to me, the worst thing is people might disagree though. Like it's all everyone's different, right? Like, but for me, the worst thing is, having a team that really can't win, but people try to fool themselves into thinking they can win, and then you get excited during the season, and they, piss you off by choking in the playoffs or underperforming in the playoffs. Like, that hurts more than having no expectations. No expectations can kind of be fun, but there are some people that say I miss the expectations. Me right now, I've it's been an opposite thing for me with the Clippers, because like when I was growing up, I wanted the expectations, and now it's been so many years of having a winning season, and we're one of the more consistent playoff organizations in the league, but it's, each exit and each season just seems to be more brutal than the next. And I just want something new. Like, if I'm being honest with you, Gifted, like I've only made content on the Clippers, like the dime dropper era during Kawhi's time as a Clipper. I can't wait till it's over. I can't wait till the stands leave. I can't wait till we see who the real Clipper fans on social media are. I can't wait till I get to talk about a new team. I can't wait till, we don't have such a mystery and question mark as the face of our franchise. And that's nothing against Kawhi personally, but like, it's just, I think having him as the face of the franchise has not been very fun. And a team that fights harder for us, you know what I mean? It can resonate more with the fans. I just don't. I've never liked a Clipper team less in my 20 years of fandom.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm loyal to this team till I die, and I won't ever change.
I mean, would you say that like the main reason why you feel this way is because of the burnout with like all the noise? Year after year after year, things still overall looking the same, having hope, and then just seeing guys just not be able to be healthy to really make it overall to the finish line? Because I can understand that, right? I mean, they had all these years. I still feel like their best chance at a ring was the year Paul George had to carry in the playoffs, or the bubble. I think those were your two best options, and the bubble's kind of weird because the team says that they didn't want to be there, but I'm like, at the same time, it's like you're up 3-1, just be there for one more round. Like, I don't know. It just feels like a golden opportunity was missed in 2 of those times, which makes it tough.
Yeah, the 2021 one is hard because I really think we were clicking, and then Kawhi got hurt, and there's just nothing you could do about that. That's just unfortunate. 2020, we blew it, but I can't lie to you, Gifted. I think losing in the bubble was a blessing in disguise. We fired Glenn Rivers. It felt like the Lakers' year. And it just felt like the Lakers' year because AD and LeBron were more healthy throughout the season. And me, I'm an LA guy. I watched the Laker games even though I didn't root for them, and they just were a little more connected throughout the season. I think we were just playing off of our talent. Lou Williams and Montrez were 20 point per game each off the bench, so we had that kind of we had a our floor was pretty high. So, and Kawhi had such an incredible regular season that year, a clear-cut top 3 player in the league for me, with LeBron and Anthony Davis, I think, that season, Giannis alongside him, and then even Harden. I'd say that was the top 5 that season because Steph had the injury, KD was out. But it's the injury thing is this, man. It's more like, it's not just about, what people need to understand is, it's not my complaints and my frustration and me being tired of this. It's not just about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, man. I did this with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. I literally had to put up with this. And so I'm not a guy that just got on the ship. I wanted to get rid of, I was in 2016 and 17 when Blake hurt his quad, and then he punched the trainer when he was already injured. And then he came back and he re-injured his quad, which caused him to miss Team USA. And then Chris Paul got hurt. Then the next season, they're both hurt at the same time. That's when I was like, we need to invest in some non-injury prone players. And here I am as a 26-year-old guy with a content creator and all this more experience as a fan. And I have dealt with 2 stars that were even more injured. And people expect me to just like, new season, let's go. Like, be super optimistic about this shit. Like,
Right.
Are you kidding me? I'm 36 years old at this point. Like, just give me some guys that are going to be healthier. Let's get some guys with a history of staying healthy. People are talking about Zach LaVine gifted. He's got injury history. You want to bring on another guy to add to the injury party, by all means. The Los Angeles Cripples. I can't do this anymore, man. I want to have a healthier, and again, it's not necessarily Kawhi's fault. It just is what it is, right? Like,
yeah,
it happens. But we got to, going forward, invest in guys without injury history, man.
So then I guess my question would be this then, right? I think the value for a Kawhi Leonard trade isn't really there because of his health stuff. But if you're the Clippers, are you mainly focusing the next 2 seasons in rebuilding his value to trade him? Or do you think Kawhi Leonard ends his career as a member on this team?
The question is, how long does Kawhi want to play? But I would hope that we go that route you said. Okay, got to get his value up, because the fact of the matter is, if just one time, we can get Kawhi healthy for the playoffs as a Clipper, who knows what he can do? Because the guy is still amazing. Like, he earned that second team All-NBA. He's still a top 10 player in the league when healthy, easily.
Those 2 games against the Suns, he was the best player on the floor by far.
It was insane.
Yeah,
in 2023, but then these 2 games, he literally hurt us because he was clearly a shell of himself. So he wants to be here because he knows he can do whatever he wants here, and that our organization will bend over backwards for this fool. He's gone whatever he's wanted since he's gotten here. He got us to trade our whole organization for Paul George. We lost SGA. He didn't believe it. He was sleeping on SGA. And again, no one could have predicted he would be like this, but it was very clear that he was a talented player. And he wasn't patient. He needed to come in with a star, and he's wanted a point guard too. Everybody always blames Paul George because he's more vocal about it, but Kawhi's always wanted a point guard, and he gets whatever he wants. Like, to me, Gifted, don't you think it's a little telling that Kawhi wasn't going super hard to try to keep Paul George? He was like, he's a grown man. If he leaves, he leaves. That tells me he's not like desperate to keep this core together. I don't think Kawhi, I think Kawhi wants to win a ring. I think when he plays, I never question his effort, but I don't think he's going to kill himself to get another championship. You know what I mean? I think he's very comfortable. He's playing for an organization that is going to do whatever they want for him. And, he's at home. Like, he's winning. He's making $50 million. It's like, why is he complaining?
Yeah, I don't think he's at all like desperately trying to like do things to force the organization to make a blockbuster trade, this or that. I think it's kind of nonchalant and kind of just going with the flow with everything. Yeah. And he's just hooping. And it's like, that's fine. But again, I think, to your point, you're looking for a new roster where you have players that you feel like you can invest in long term, that you can trust to get better and grow and have continuity, and more importantly, be on the court and not be hurt. And right now, as good as Kawhi Leonard is, even last year, again, he was all NBA caliber, especially after the James Harden trade. You're looking for sustainability. And right now with this overall roster, it's hard to say this roster has that at a championship level. Yeah. But this is why your team is so fascinating to me, though, Dime, because I feel like a lot of people don't know what to make of the Clippers. I think this team is a dark horse team because you lose Paul George, yes. However, now Kawhi's role offensively, he can get more touches now. James Harden, he can have the ball more now. And you guys added a lot more talent. I'm not going to speak too much about the off the court, things, but KPJ legitimately has talent. He does. And I feel like this team as a whole for a regular season with your ads, especially Chris Dunn, like, you guys just have so many guys that are capable of attacking different things in your bench unit and your starters. I guess my question would be is, what are your expectations for this team? Is it a disappointment if they don't make the playoffs? Are they a team that should be established as a top 6 team, or do you expect even more from them? I don't know what you think.
I expect playing based on the fact that Kawhi is going to miss games. I think of Kawhi and James Harden, if you give me a guarantee that they're going to play 60 plus games, I think we actually finish 6th, anywhere between 4th through 6th. I think we can be better than people think. but it's the health. We could literally finish outside the play-in if Kawhi gets injured for an increased amount of time. The main thing for me, Gifted, I just need us to finish better than Houston, because we actually can keep our pick if Houston finishes worse than us and they're not bottom 10. Because then OKC has a choice. They can pick Houston's pick this year, their own pick, or the Clippers pick. They're not going to pick their own because they're going to be the best team of the three. So that pick is going to be like 30, 29, or 28, because I think they'll have a top 3 record in the league. So they're going to pick either Houston's pick or ours. And I hope that we finish better than Houston, but Houston still does well enough. They're not a bottom 10 team in the league, so we can keep our pick. That's really all I care about, because the championship window is chalked, but I'll love if we can see Kawhi healthy in the playoffs in the Intuit Dome. That would be super surreal. Like, that'd be dope. He has no signature playoff moments at home, like none in front of a crowd because COVID. Literally none. Right.
That's crazy. None. He has no moments at home. You're right. Yeah. It's on the road. I was thinking about that's right, because Dallas let the fan. That is crazy. I never thought about it that way. Yeah, wow, that's true. I feel that. I think this team making the playoffs is a solid enough expectation with Kawhi Leonard and James Harden. The Western Conference continues to get more and more confusing. There's a lot of teams that are going to pop back into playoff relevance. I think the Memphis Grizzlies are a strong candidate for that as well. But I just look at what makes a team good in the West and what makes a team good in the overall regular season. To me, it's an understanding of what you want to get to on both ends. And I just think that the Clippers have that scrambling type to where they have guys, right? Like, you guys have wings. You still have Norman Powell, who gives you great juice. Bones Highland is a question. He might get traded mid-season, but even he shows you flashes where it's like he can really dance with the ball and like be I would say overall microwave guy, right? KPJ, downhill threat. He shot, I believe, 37%. Like, there's other things that these, players can do on this team, which is why I don't quite know how to rank the Clippers, because James Harden and Kawhi Leonard with more opportunity, with role players who just understand exactly what their role is on a night-to-night basis, where they're not going to be great one night, maybe bad the other, but they know exactly consistently what's being asked of them, could be better than what people think.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and plus, James Harden never missed the playoffs. As I said, like, again, I know James Harden's career, even though I'm not his biggest fan, he's never missed the playoffs. Kawhi Leonard, he has only missed the playoffs. I believe the only season he missed the playoffs was 2022 when he didn't play a game. So he's literally never missed the playoffs in a season that he plays. So these two guys, when it comes to getting to the playoffs, they get there. So I'm going to obviously put my money on that we're getting there. And the additions, I mean, I love, me, I'm a defense first guy. To have Derek Jones Jr., to add, because Terrence Mann last year, he really had to do a lot defensively at the point of attack. And I think he's a solid defender, but he's nothing crazy. To get more guys and have like a, him be not, now he's not your defensive stopper. He's just one of your stoppers. You know what I mean? With Derek Jones, and you mentioned Chris Dunn, but also fan favorite Nicholas Batum coming back. He was just really solid for Philly and great for France.
He was very solid. Yes.
Dude, he's just awesome. He just helps teams win. And I'm so excited to have him back. That's honestly, besides the stadium, what I'm most excited about is Nico coming back.
True. I heard you going in your head about the point guard situation with Bones Highland, all of the other guards. If you had to choose a guy that had the most potential out of all of them, who would you highlight, and who has the most value to be traded if you had to trade one of them?
Potential, I would say Kevin Porter Jr. has the most potential, but trade value, I think Chris Dunn, because I think teams want a point of attack defender. I think he's the one that
they do
should be guaranteed to play over Dunn and KPJ, because Chris Dunn, Batum, Derek Jones, Kawhi, and Terrence Mann, and then Zubac's behind them. That's a lot of good defensive personnel. Like, I think the route for the Clippers to be better than people think, top 10 defense at minimum. At minimum, let's get back to being a prideful defensive team, and then maybe even top 5. If we have a top 5 defense, Gifted, we're for sure making the playoffs. Like without it.
I agree. There's no doubt. Because mainly a offense with James Harden and Kawhi isn't going to be a bad offense. It just won't be. So if you have a top 5 defense, you're in there for sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
The only question mark is in games that Kawhi or James Harden doesn't play without Paul George. Now we are really putting everything on that one guy to create
juice. Yeah,
because look at what else we have shot creation wise. Besides, like we have to bring in KPJ or Bones in that case, because other than that, I mean, Norman Powell is more of a play finisher than a play starter, and Chris Dunn can do some things here and there, but these guys aren't necessarily guys that run your offense. You know what I mean? And create a bunch of shots for other guys. So you're putting a lot on Kawhi or Harden when one of them's out, which I don't know if they're going to be able to handle that consistently throughout the course of the season. But when they're fully healthy, you're right. It'll be a pretty efficient offense and very good defensive pieces around them.
I like your point about Chris Dunn too, because a lot of teams wanted Chris Dunn. He was a guy that revived his overall career. Because again, the point of attack defense was stifling. And I think having that here, he's going to be able to slot players in their rightful overall position. Another great point with Terrence Mann. Good defender, but he was asked to do a lot based on their lack of overall personnel. Now having him and Derrick Jones, you have multiple guys that have length and size. And to me, that is the formula, right? You just have a whole bunch of wings who can attack closeouts, be, super athletic in transition, and just understand where to be offensively spaced. And you can run with that team. And Harden with athletes is always a good blend, always, especially lob threats. For instance, DJJ downhill, that works out with Harden. I can see that having a lot of overall success. I kind of question the big man depth. I'm kind of curious how you feel about that.
Well, I think Zubac has to be a clear-cut third guy on this team this season. Like he has to be offensively. He has to be given the ball in the post several times a game. We've all been saying this for years, but they never do it. He has a very solid right-hand jump hook from the left block. And even the last 2 years, he's gotten a left-hand jump hook. Jump hooks over both hands. Not a ton of guys in the league have that. It's just not a post-up league, so you don't really see it, put on display. I really think Zoo is ready to take some more responsibility offensively. And then I think the question mark is how is he going to handle double teams? But like, you're not going to know if you don't try. And for me, he's not been terrible with it when he's gotten it. So and for a team that struggles to get paint points Gifted, why not throw it down to your big man that actually has some skill? Because Zubac is not a switchable big. He's not a stretch big. He's a traditional big. So you should use his skills to maximize his value. And now you don't have the excuse of, we got to get Paul George the ball. We got to give Russ the ball. We don't have that. So it's, as you said, it's a very simple pecking order now. It's Kawhi and James Harden, and then anybody else that can help us create. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think Zubac has to be that guy. As far as big man depth, Kai
Jones off the bench, right?
Kai Jones is on a training camp deal. He has to prove himself. As of now, it's going to be Mo Bamba off the bench, and he has not really proven to be a good NBA player. But we haven't had a stretch big in the whole Kawhi era. We tried it with Ibaka, and he got hurt right away. So we'll see if it works, if he can give us like 10, 12 minutes a game. But in my opinion, Zubac, this should be the first season in his career where he plays 30-plus minutes a game. There's no reason why he shouldn't. He's in his prime. He should play 30-plus minutes a game. But we'll see what Mo Bamba does. I think one thing you should remember too, Gifted, is Ty Lue loves small ball, and now we have the personnel to do it again. We have we can have a lineup with Nico, Derrick Jones Jr., and Kawhi all out there at once, and then you have Terrence and Harden or Norman Harden. Everybody's fairly switchable. A lot of shooters out there, a lot of athletes that would be good for scrambling and rotating. I think we have some real potential there. Or even if you want to go Harden, Dunn, Batum, Derrick Jones, Kawhi.
You could do that too.
A lot of options, right? So that'll be something that Ty Lue will be excited about.
I love your point too, by the way. Zubac is a big that is very traditional, yes. If you watched him last season, there were a lot of moments where Harden and Zubac had a different type of connection and feel for each other. And you saw Zubac have a lot of games where they actually gave him touches and he was torching teams. I feel like if he has an elevated role, just having that with shooting is going to help a lot. You guys still have good shooters on this team who can knock down shots. If KPJ can maintain being a 38%, 37% three-point shooter, if he can shoot a good enough volume off the catch, having that with the big man helps a ton because Harden can feed Zubac in the right way. Zubac actually has a team that can get him the ball. So I think that will definitely pay dividends towards being more competitive. I got to be honest, though. I really do want to see if Kai Jones can be playable because he's very athletic. He's an athletic freak to me. And if you like, I think he can kind of mimic, I would say, Montrezl Harrell in terms of the energy, being like the spark plug off the bench who could really detonate athletically. If he can play, it just adds more and more to that depth in the front court.
Let me ask you a question, though. I mean, I'm open to giving Kai Jones a chance and seeing what he can do, and I agree with your athleticism take. But let me ask you this: where do you see Kevin Porter Jr. falling into the rotation?
That's the question. I feel like a lot of it has to be based on whatever Kevin Porter Jr. can do as a gamer. All I can speak to is the last time he was in the NBA, he was damn near like an 18 points per game guy. To be fair, he was on a bad team. I hear that, but he generally was a skilled player with the ball in his hands. I feel like in a situation like this, he didn't really have stability around him. He didn't have like a point guard around him who could actually get people the ball and guide people on exactly where to go. KPJ, to me, a lot of his value is going to have to be playing with Harden, but playing in reps without Harden and being the sole creator can also help him in spots too. I just think the main thing that's going to impact his overall minutes, if I know Ty Lue well, is going to be how does he look defensively. I think Chris Dunn is going to be given more looks because of that, because we know Chris Dunn buys in there, but KPJ's talent should be enough to get him through. I really do feel that way.
So what's your starting lineup then?
I probably go James Harden at the 1. By the end of the season, if KPJ can do what I believe he can do, I might lean him at the 2. You will go Kawhi Leonard at the 3. I hate Kawhi Leonard at the 4. Let's never do that again, please. I don't like those lineups.
What's our alternative right now, though?
As a format, probably either Batum or DJJ. Okay, and I don't like that either, but
DJJ, it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be Derek Jones. He just came off a Miles appearance, so okay. So that's what I think the starting lineup is gonna be too, right? You said Terrence Mann. Oh no, you said Kevin Porter, but it's not gonna be Kevin Porter to start.
No, I don't think he's gonna begin the season in that role. I'm saying if he can prove himself,
who do you have?
His talents. Okay, I would have Chris Dunn. I think Chris Dunn's gonna probably be in that lineup.
Wow. Okay, so you're going Chris Dunn instead of Terrence. Okay, that's the first I've ever heard someone say Chris Dunn's going to start. So then off the bench. Okay, so now that frees up KPJ off the bench. KPJ, Powell, Terrence Mann. So you're taking Amir Coffey out of the rotation.
I think Amir Coffey might see his minutes a bit more limited. Yeah, I think the shooting is the one thing that would make me cause to pause because he's still going to be one of the best overall shooters on the team. My thing is his volume isn't crazy enough to make me feel like he's going to be guaranteed like the other guys will, because I think the other guys are just more dynamic than he is.
Okay, that's an interesting prediction. Chris Dunn starting. I wonder if that's even being considered by the coaching staff.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I just think that Chris Dunn had such a special bounce back season that I feel like the value is going to be there. And I feel like he would fit in very well with these lineups. Because again, as a POA, I think he's a better POA defender than Terrence Mann was last year. Now, to be fair, Terrence Mann definitely built cachet up since he's been on the team so long. But will Ty Lue allow him to have the reins? I'm not sure.
No, he's definitely a better defender than Terrence. No doubt.
Cool. So, also the other thing is, the spacing things, I'm curious, where would you put this Clippers team in terms of spacing? Are you satisfied with it, or do you think there's more work that has to be done there?
I don't know if there's more work that has to be done, but I don't know how good of a three-point shooting team we're going to be. I think Terrence and Derek Jones, a concern there is that they're both not super reliable from three. I mean, Terrence had a huge slump last season, the beginning of the season. Then he ended up having a great second half of the season shooting the ball and made his averages 35% from three, but he was shaky. at times throughout the season from 3, and Derek Jones is not the best shooter. So if they both start bricking, it's going to be tough for Harden and Kawhi because Zubac is already not a shooter. So that's not great. Chris Dunn's jumper has always been from deep, has always been kind of a weakness, a question mark. So we'll see how that does. I know he shot 37% last year. Norm and Nico are the reliable ones that we know are going to shoot pretty well.
Great shooters.
If Terrence Mann can get himself back to 37+% from 3, I think it'll help us a lot. But you mentioned the pick and roll tandem between Zoo and Harden. I think a lot of it is just Harden will make any big in the pick and roll look great. Like he really is, when it comes to pick and roll, man, one of the best in the history of the game. I think he has an argument for the best in the history of the game. And you know me, I'm big in history, and I'm saying that about Harden. So like, I am fair. I think I'm fair, but people obviously think I'm unfair with Harden. But it is what it is. Everyone's gonna have their takes. But yeah, I think another training camp of Harden and Zoo, kind of a training camp of Harden being there with Zoo because he wasn't there for training camp last year, could help in that regard.
Yeah, I think that stuff matters a lot. And again, the reason why I lean Chris Dunn is, even though Chris Dunn to me is still kind of a shaky shooter, I think the fact that he's so good on defense with a more consistent jumper than probably Terrence Mann is why he might get the lean. Because while Ty Lue does love defense, he also does care about proper space lineups if possible. And I think that the explosion of having Terrence Mann as an athletic guy off of your bench as well, with Norman Powell shooting, there can be some real dynamic stuff there too. So I can see that. It's possible.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. I would say this. What do you think of the Clippers 2025 schedule? It just dropped. Have you seen it yet?
Yeah, I just did an episode on that right before I got on with you, actually, funny enough.
Oh, okay. So what stands out to you the most in it to you?
No afternoon home games. We have time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. Crazy, right? We have, and that's been a whole thing. Clipper fans, like, they were bad at the afternoon games. And then we had tied for the most back-to-backs, but there's 10 other teams that have the same amount of back-to-backs. So to me, man, the schedule is a schedule. It's the NBA schedule. It's 82 games. You have 41 at home, 41 on the road against your NBA competition. Play ball and stop with the excuses. I'm not in the business of excuse making with the schedule. Go out there and get it done. We got the Suns opening night. Check ball.
I love the passion, because you're right? Like, we do these things where, like, we really say, oh my God, they have such a hard schedule, this or that. At the end of the day, you're going to have to play every team the same amount of times as you normally would. There's going to be easy stretches. There's going to be hard stretches. It's about how you handle it and how you build on it. I think the biggest point that you mentioned, though, is having Harden for a off season to develop and get these guys all on the same page. I think that's what matters. It feels like this team has a different energy around it, because last year it was basically the 3 guys and then everyone else has to basically figure it out. This feels like winning and losing games is going to be more of a team thing this year. I don't know if you get that sense, but it just feels that way to me.
Well, I'll just say this. Last season was a borderline super team, 3-star level players, huge names, even a 4th huge name with Russ. But to me, it was 3-star caliber players, which is a super team by my definition, especially with collusion from the players to help each other get together. But the Clippers have always seemed to thrive when they're under the radar, when you least expect them to be good.
And that's what they are this season. Yeah,
exactly. So I think we could surprise some people, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to the same conversation it's been for 3 years. Kawhi Leonard's health.
I can't say you're wrong about that. That really will determine a lot in terms of how good this team would be. But if it comes down to like mid-season and this team is like above, I would say 500 or whatever, what are some areas that you think this team needs to address by the deadline?
It's actually 2 major ones. One, maybe upgrade that backup big, because as we said, Mo Bamba, Kai Jones, we're talking championship, it's still sketchy. And then another big forward that's athletic that would slide Kawhi down to that 3. You know, there's two guys we haven't talked about that I think have a chance to break into the rotation.
Okay.
It would be much harder though with your Chris Dunn into the starting lineup and KPJ getting guaranteed minutes implementation, but Jordan Miller and Kobe Brown had really good summer league campaigns. We were 2nd place in the summer league, and Jordan Miller was damn near the MVP. Maybe he's worth a shot to give off the bench for some minutes and see what he could do.
Do you think Ty Lue trusts those players?
No.
Or do you think No, no.
But I'll tell you this though, Gifted. I'll tell you this: if Amir Coffey is guaranteed to get some minutes, I think that they'll be open enough to see if Jordan Miller could challenge Amir Coffey in training camp for that spot.
Really? That would be pretty big. Honestly, I'm not mad at it because he would inject some youth and like a different look, which just helps the team more. Yeah. Yeah. A team that plays hard is the team that you want, especially you, because of everything you know at the beginning of this. So I do hear that. I will say this for you. If you had to power rank the Western Conference in terms of like teams that are probably the biggest competition for the Clippers, who are the most serious teams in the West in your mind?
OKC, number one. I love what they've done this offseason, getting Isaiah Hartenstein and Caruso. I mean, Gifted. That defense is going to be absurd. Like,
yeah, Caruso, for Josh Giddey too. That's all.
Caruso, SGA, Lou Dort, and J-Dub on the same team with Chet and Isaiah Hartenstein behind them. Like, that's absurd. They have a great chance to go all the way. Minnesota is better than us. Denver, I would still favor because they got the best player in the world and Jamal Murray. But Jamal Murray, I mean, he's going to have a lot of eyeballs on him this season after what's been happening the last couple of months.
He's been struggling. Yeah.
Yeah. And I really like Jamal Murray. Other than that, though, no one's that serious to me. After that, it's a huge drop off. Okay, I'm going to give respect to the defending Western Conference champs. I'll say Dallas is fourth and they're better than us. But after that, Lakers, Suns. Honestly, though, Gifted, if Kawhi's healthy, I'm down to just see what's good with Dallas. Like, I'm down to see what's good with them.
Okay.
For real. But there's really only three teams that I think, and it's the same three teams last year that were the best.
I noticed you didn't mention Denver.
Oh, I did mention Denver. I said because they still have Jokic and Jamal Murray.
Oh, you did. My fault. Never mind.
You know what team I'm forgetting though, Gifted, that I think is a sleeper, even though I don't like them either, but they are a sleeper.
Pelicans?
No, the Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh no, Memphis is up there for me.
I would say Memphis is the top four.
Absolutely.
Top five then. You know what? I'll give you a clear-cut five. Dallas, Memphis, and those three. OKC, Minnesota, and Denver. Memphis, getting Ja back this year. Brandon Clark's going to be fully healthy. I really like BC. Jaren Jackson is, he's improved each year. And then you got guys like Gigi Jackson and Vince Williams and these guys that have, kind of made their mark as utility guys.
And they all play hard.
Yeah, so they should be. And Desmond Bane's going to keep getting better. I think they'll be solid. I'm not tripping on Phoenix. Sacramento, I think they've gotten better, but I don't think they're very serious in terms of actually winning. I think you want me to say who I think can actually win a championship, though?
Yes. I'm all ears.
OKC, Minnesota. See, I think Denver's actually gotten worse. Like, I really don't know if that roster's a championship roster.
Okay.
But Jokic is so good. And if Murray becomes Murray again, and MPJ takes a little leap scoring-wise, now that he's kind of entering his prime, then maybe they have a chance. I don't think Memphis is ready to win it all, though, yet, Gifted. I think they have a chance to go far, but I don't think this year they're ready. So let me just say those three. I think that's the only three teams that have a chance to win the championship.
I don't think that's crazy. I'll tell you mine, right?
I think more credit, though. What are you saying? Yeah.
Okay, so for me, OKC has to be in these conversations. They narrowly lost to Dallas last year. It took PJ Washington to shoot 48% from three on 8 attempts in the series. I feel like their ads are so big. Alex Caruso as a connector piece, defensive player, is going to unlock so many things for them. No one is talking about his player, but if Kason Wallace can have a leap as well off their bench.
Another good defender.
Yeah, like they just have a great team. And Shea is just very, very, very good player. I love Minnesota. In my opinion, Minnesota is probably my favorite team in the conference. I just like the size and the length that they have. It's really matchups with them. And I think year 3 of their front court learning to work together with Ant, who year after year comes back better. I just think they have a lot of talent there. And I kind of feel like Memphis is a very potent team. I do question how they're going to be in the postseason, but Ja Morant coming back healthy with Jaren Jackson Jr. and a big who can basically mimic the Steven Adams role, kind of. We got to see how he looks all the way during the season, but having Brandon Clark, who was the best backup big in the league last time he was healthy, I just think they have a lot of young guys and their defense is normally elite. Bane is also a player that a lot of people don't talk about, but he's basically this era's new Klay Thompson, where he's 3-and-D, except he can actually create off the bounce a little bit. So they're a exciting team for me.
That was a little harsh to the prime Klay Thompson.
He couldn't dribble. Sorry.
Yeah.
He dribbled like a Republican.
Desmond Bane is definitely better off the bounce, but Klay in his defensive prime, I'm waiting. I don't know if Desmond Bane is at that yet. But
yeah, no, I don't think Bane's quite there yet. I just think in terms of like juice and being like a real shooter, I think he's probably the closest this league has. Ja has a lot to prove too. I think he has a huge chip on his overall shoulder, and I think he's going to try to really remind people how good of a player he is. So yeah, they're a team that I think is going to get a lot of regular season wins in the West. But again, we haven't really seen them really contend. So I don't know if I would have them in the actual title conversation.
Yeah, and
Dallas is interesting, by the way. I don't think you like Dallas all that much, do you?
No, and I'm just going to say that I don't think they're going to win the championship. I'm going to double down.
Okay.
They're not going to win it.
Why is that for you? I'm curious.
I think they were still a little bit away, and I don't think they really got much better. I know they made it there, but they got crushed.
They did get crushed by the Celtics, although I do want to be fair. I feel like the Boston Celtics last year, if it wasn't Denver, who was just a bad matchup frontcourt-wise for them, I kind of feel like Boston was going to do that to a couple of the teams in the West. Dallas is an interesting team for me, though, because Luka and Kyrie in crunch time situations, time and time again, prove that they can outperform pretty much any team in the league. I think a lot of that still maintains the overall same premise. I think their season is really going to be dictated by if you're seeing leaps from their front court players. Derek Lively unlocked so many things for this Dallas team, because initially I wasn't high on them. I didn't think that they were going to be that high up there because their front court was a massive question. But then Lively went and had the season he had. So I kind of feel like they're legit, but it really comes down to matchups. Matchups are going to really choose a lot of how this overall Western Conference goes. And Denver, I agree with you, actually. I think Denver did get worse. I think losing Bruce Brown and then losing KCP back-to-back kind of impacts your two-way process. They need their young players like Christian Brown, maybe Julian Strawther to really become developable players who can be good offensively and defensively. But there's only so many leaps every player is going to take. So I'm really not as high. Jokic is just very good, so we think that they're always going to be there. But I think last year they showed us if Jamal Murray isn't 50, 40, 90 Jamal Murray in the playoffs, they're beatable.
They are. I would agree with that. I'm just being a little nice to Jokic and holding out some faith for him. But yeah, I would say Denver, Minnesota, and OKC. If a West team wins the championship, it's going to be one of those three. I'm going to stand on that.
Sure. Well, Dime, I really appreciate you stopping by. We'll definitely re-chop it up in season. Again, I think this Clippers team, the team that a lot of people are just going to throw to the waters. But again, in terms of depth, in terms of size and defense, if they get to their defensive peak with James Harden and Kawhi being their offensive ceiling raisers, this Clippers team can be a much better team than people think they are. I think they are the dark horse of the conference, if you ask me.
Okay, I like that. I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, Dime, much appreciated. Everyone, make sure to go tap into Dime's channel. His link will be in the description of this video when it drops. Dime, I appreciate you coming on. Make sure to tune in to Locked On Clippers as well, where Dime gives consistent content all throughout the season. All of his socials and all that will be in the description box below. Any closing words, Dime?
Appreciate you as always, man. You can follow me on Twitter at DimeDropperPod and subscribe to my personal YouTube channel and Locked On Clippers. But my personal is where I talk about all NBA teams. So
all hoops, by the way, all eras. Dime really knows his stuff for years and years and years. He's been doing it. So big shout out to him.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate you, Gifted.
Absolutely, Dime. Have a good one, bro.